You're listening to FitPro Sessions with Parallel Coaching, episode number 9. Hi, I'm Neale Bergman, and in today's podcast, I'm talking to Charlie Wardle, aka the Mountain Coach, all about leading groups in the outdoors and how to get out of your comfort zone. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Neale Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FitPro doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support, and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify, and kickstart as a FitPro? This is the FitPro Sessions Podcast with Parallel Coaching.
A massive warm welcome to Charlie Wardle, the Mountain Coach. I first met Charlie a couple of years ago when I took 5 of my clients when I was working and running a boot camp on the Welsh Mountain Three Peaks. So we got up super early. We trekked our way over to Wales and we started off at Penifan and then raced over to Cadair Idris with Charlie and the team and then went up Snowdon. And we just about made it. I remember just shy of 15 hours. And I remember feeling completely knackered for about 2 weeks after. And it was so much fun. I actually came back the next year with another group of guys to do it the complete opposite way round. And we started off just after midnight on 2 o'clock in the morning in Snowdon, then went to Cadair Idris, mid Wales, down to Penifan in South Wales. And I'm going to say that was the harder route through, to be honest. Starting off with Snowdon and then finishing with Penifan. And the weather on the second time I went through with Charlie was just horrendous. But the reason I brought Charlie on is whilst Charlie isn't in the fitness industry, he has gone on to build the Mountain Coach with tens of thousands of followers on social media and running mountain day and weekend excursions, adventures, trips all over the world, not just in the UK, but leading groups. So there's so much we can learn and take from Charlie and his experience. So with no further ado, over to yourself, Charlie. Tell us more about the Mountain Coach and Charlie Wardle.
Thanks, Neale. So Mountain Coach basically offer a wide variety of hikes, adventures, challenges, some one-day events, some during the night, some weekend trips, and some longer adventures. So primarily it's in the UK. We do have some overseas expeditions and treks we do, but yeah, all over the UK. So as Neale mentioned, he's done the Welsh Three Peaks both ways around. But yeah, adventures and trips, whether that's North Wales, South Wales, Scotland, Lake District, Yorkshire, Peak District, South Coast, a whole wide variety. So yeah, it's the Mountain Coach. And if people, all you guys, into your fitness and physical exercise and activities, getting outdoors and doing something maybe a little bit different, challenging yourself, and yeah, just trying out something new. That's got to be a good thing. So if anyone is interested, then yeah, come and join me and come on one of the trips. So a little plug initially, themountaincoach.com. But yeah, as I'm sure we'll go on to discuss, I get asked a lot of the time, oh, do you do anything else? Because most of my activities are at the weekends, and so people kind of who are coming along, for them it's it's an adventure, it's a jolly, it's escape from their life, and they kind of assume that that's all I do is just go out on these trips at the weekend without realising everything that goes behind that, all the work and the effort and the messages, the social media, the emails, the organisation, getting the extra guides and helpers, logistics, everything behind the scenes, which is more than a full-time job. So, but yeah, I'm here to answer questions, to chat about how I got into it, what I do, and if it can help any of you guys, then fantastic.
Superb. I can really relate to that. We head into the classroom, most weekends with the parallel learners, whether that be level 2 gym, level 3 PT, or the CPD courses, kettlebells, for example. What do we actually do during the week? And actually that's the bigger thing that we do is, there's so much more behind the scenes, the organization, the sales, the marketing, the social media, it's, as you say, what people see versus what actually takes place. I think that's a great message, isn't it? There's a lot of work behind the scenes to pull off a trip with clients. You mentioned, you've done various hikes and adventures all over the UK. Do you have a favourite location? Yeah, I know you used to live in North Wales. Do you have a place where you have an attachment to, where you're constantly go back to and think, it doesn't matter, I've walked this 1,000 times, but I love it?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd have to say North Wales and sort of Snowdonia, in that for many years I was living and based from Milton Keynes, and for anyone who knows, that's quite a long way from any mountains, and I spent a lot of time travelling up to North Wales, and I always thought I'd live there one day, and I did. I moved up to North Wales, not in the mountains, but sort of 45 minutes away on the coast, and I love the mountains up there, and all the diversity, all the the different stuff you've got. It's not just Snowdon. I mean, Snowdon's great. It offers so much, but there's so many more ridges, peaks, different routes, different mountain ranges up there. Although I've actually moved away from North Wales now, I think I would always have to say North Wales. And I mean, I like scrambling, and I like the ridges and a bit of danger, adventure.
A little bit more risky.
Yeah. And there's loads of great stuff up there. But if I had to pick something, I'd probably still go with Crib Goch on going up the Snowdon route on there. That offers so much, all year round. So, yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd go with Snowdon and the Crib Goch route on that.
I've climbed Snowdon well over a couple of dozen times, but I've only ever gone up Crib Goch once, and it was last May. Hayley and I went up just to do various routes, and we were really kind of just taking it as it came, really, and just judging it based on the weather. And the first couple of days were just horrendous. We managed to get up Tryfan and kind of play around on some low-level hikes. And we woke up on the Sunday, and it was just amazing, beautiful sun. The weather had completely cleared. There wasn't a breath of wind, and it was like, that is the go-ahead for Crib Goch, and it is by far the best route up Snowdon, but also the best route in and around North Wales, I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, you mentioned about the weather, and I mean, mountains are notoriously difficult in terms of predicting the weather, what conditions you're going to get, and how quickly they can change. And so that is a big area in terms of having the knowledge, expertise, the right equipment, clothing, etc. But if anyone has, you get a lot of people saying they've done Snowdon, they couldn't see a thing, it was miserable, and it kind of puts them off. And all I can say is, if you do it again and again and again, at some point you're going to get the most amazing, spectacular views and experience, which makes it all worthwhile. And I mean, I won't say how many times I've climbed Snowdon, but I've had well over 50 clear summit views, and you can never get bored of the scenery around there. But what I always, because I sort of teach sort of navigation and outdoor skills and map reading and stuff, and what I try and get across to people there is having that extra knowledge and skill set enables you to be safer, but also to be more adventurous. And if you had a fantastic sunny weekend in the summer, where Snowdon will be absolutely heaving, thousands and thousands of people, which is great that they're doing it, but it kind of spoils the experience. There are so many places you could go where there'd be nobody about, and different routes and different areas. And if you've got that extra knowledge and confidence, then you can go and enjoy and be more adventurous and have a much greater experience at any time. And I guess there's kind of, in the same way with your guys, having those extra skills and extra qualifications or extra knowledge means you can do so many more things. To get a more variety, and so I think in that sense it's always good to gain more knowledge and have more skills, and just opens up more opportunities.
Completely. There's about a dozen questions that I've kind of just jotted down that I want to ask you based off that, but before we do, I just want to kind of segue back before the mountain coach, because you've not always been the mountain coach. What's the back history to Charlie?
Okay, so I'll try and keep it short, but no offence to any accountants out there, but I started off as a chartered accountant and worked in finance for many years in London, big corporates, that sort of corporate sort of lifestyle. And it was okay. But I knew I never really wanted to be an accountant or work in that area. And I was successful, got to quite a high level, but 11 years ago now, I kind of turned my back on the finance career. And there were reasons for that. And I set up a charity called Climb Your Mountain. And that was all about people who are going through a difficult time and had their own personal mountain to climb, to get involved in physical exercise, activities and challenges. So I'd had my own sort of bad experiences a few years prior to that. And one of the main things I did, which really helped, was I started running marathons. And about slightly extreme, I think there was so much, sort of looking back at that, so many benefits of the exercise, the focus, the sense of achievement, and all the benefits that come with that help people get through difficult times. So that was really kind of the idea and concept, using the physical activities and challenges to help, I guess, in your mental health. And developed an educational side, started running workshops and talks and courses and writing books around stress, depression, anxiety, confidence, all these areas, but always with a real focus on the benefits of physical exercise. And with that, almost inevitably, with the title of Climb Your Mountain and the fact that it was all about sort of exercise, activities and challenges, I started getting involved in the mountains. And I did my first sort of group mountain trek up Snowdon it was actually on my birthday in August 2008. And that was really successful. And then more people wanted to do it, and it just developed and developed and developed. And I then found a love and passion for the mountains and the outdoors. It also became a great way of fundraising for the charity, and started doing overseas expeditions like Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp and the Atlas Mountains and stuff like that. So it all kind of snowballed from there. But then again, back into full detail, about four and a bit years ago now, I then decided to set up the Mountain Coach and concentrate sort of almost full time, not completely, but most of my time on offering the outdoor challenges, activities, trips to anybody, general public, and that's kind of where the Mountain Coach set up. So it's kind of finance background, corporate life, then into sort of the charity, the health and well-being, then finding the passion for the mountains and the outdoors, and then deciding to have my main business as offering those activities.
What I love about that as kind of a backstory is you've used the analogy of a metaphor of a mountain being that you've got to get over your own mountain first, and somewhat the outdoors, the running the marathons, getting out, health and fitness for you liberated kind of your lifestyle to kind of add clarity, I suppose, and kind of see a different way of life, an easier way of life that allowed you to escape the pressures, the stress that you had experienced, that you could now help others work on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has choices, some more than others, and for me it was deciding or realizing that trying to earn lots of money and trying to be successful in that sense wasn't the answer to happiness and to have a healthy, enjoyable life. And once I kind of realized that was the case, it was like, well, I want to get a good life balance, work-life balance. I want to do stuff that I enjoy, that I've got more of a passion for. And I'll be earning a lot less money, but it will be healthier, it will be more enjoyable, and something I want to be doing. And anyone who runs their own business, I'm sure they'll tell you, it can be difficult. There's a lot of pros and cons. It can be quite lonely at times, a lot of pressure, responsibility, but also it gives you've got more control, and you can decide what you do when you do it to a greater degree. And I've always been into sport and fitness and health. And what I was finding, particularly when I was in the corporate life, is I didn't have time for that. And when you're sort of not doing what you want to be doing, I guess you kind of resent it as well as
completely.
Physical and mental sort of not so good things that happen. And so for me, given that I guess a lot of it is my confidence comes from feeling fit and healthy and being able to do stuff. And so therefore setting up the business and deciding, I'm not happy with something, what can I do to change it? What are the important things? What are the priorities? And, most people, when it comes to their health, they don't really think of it as much until something goes wrong. And if you sort of say, would you rather be healthy or wealthy? Most people kind of probably say wealthy until they suffer with ill health. Health is the most important thing. So I completely get, money is important. It can provide, greater options and can be a nice thing. However, you've got to look after your health, both physically and mentally. So going back to, the outdoors and the mountains and the activities, you've got all the physical benefits, but it's so much more than that. And what I find, particularly in mountains, even if you have horrible weather days and it's rainy and miserable and stuff.
They're the best days on the hill.
Exactly. It's all about attitude and your mindset because, you have to look at it as, it's more of a challenge. It's more of an achievement. It's more of an adventure. It is great to get the nice photos and to look back and, especially nowadays, posting it all up on Facebook and Instagram with these fantastic photos. That's great. But if you've got the right mindset, you're going to have a great experience in whatever the conditions. And I mean,
it's almost like, also, sorry to jump in, it's like who you become during that hike as well. When, I've done a lot of mountain days myself and been out on the hill, and, when the weather's amazing, the hike, the adventure kind of goes to plan. But when it's wet and miserable, you've got to have a totally different mindset. And certainly when you're with people, you've got to become much more of a team player. And there's a lot more considerations. So for me, it's always been a case of who did I become whilst out on the hill on that adventure? And usually, I've always reflected more on the days where it was tougher because of the weather or because of the situation, the environment, as opposed to the nice, sunny, clean days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as human beings, you need to be challenged and you need to push yourself. And, it's nice to be comfortable, but as you say, you learn a lot more about yourself. You grow more. You become a stronger person, more resilient when you go out of your comfort zone and you are put in a more difficult situation. And, going back to the fitness thing, I'm not an expert in the personal training side and that, but I do know that building muscle, you're breaking it down. You're basically breaking the muscle and then rebuilding it stronger. And so in a way, you're putting yourself under that sort of environment of
stress
in order to then grow stronger again. We all love the views and the fantastic weather conditions, but don't let that put you off, because as you said, and lots of other people say, sometimes the best days and the things you remember most are when it's miserable and horrible and tough and challenging and all of that, because humans, you need that at times to push yourself and to feel I've done that, and that builds confidence, and that has a massive knock-on effect to all areas of life. So
completely. I was reading somewhere the other week actually for one of our courses about the impact of training outside. So not necessarily walking or hiking, but to take your classic PT session and do it near woodland or water. And the research paper was in summary saying that the endorphins and the feel-good factor of what clients reported was 10 times greater being in the outdoors versus in a room with aircon.
And it's good to try new things and new experiences and also, again, going back to the fitness and the training, if you just like with anything, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, your body gets used to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to challenge yourself and do something different. And, so almost not shocks your body, but it gives it something else to do. And so then it can focus on that. And it just, overall, you get better growth. And
otherwise you're just going to sit in a plateau. You're not going to develop. And you've got to, in order to adapt, you've got to put a harder stress on the body.
Yeah. So new experiences, new things. And when it comes to the outdoors, don't let the weather put you off. I mean, especially in the UK, you're going to get all sorts of different conditions, all times of year. I mean, a lot of people have the view that, in the summer it's all going to be nice, in winter it's going to be horrible. I mean, honestly, especially when it comes to the mountains, those rules don't apply. You can have the most horrendous days in the middle of July and August, and the most beautiful days in December, January. So stop making any excuses. Basically deal with it, live your life, get out there, do stuff, challenge yourself, push yourself, try new things. And what have you got to lose? Very little.
Completely.
So loads more to gain.
I remember the second time I did the Welsh Three Peaks with you. There was me and we had, I think it's 4 or 5 of my boot camp clients, and we met in the youth hostel car park partway up Snowdon. What's that called?
Penny Pass.
Penny Pass. There we go.
Park,
It was at 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock. It's pitch black. It looked like the weather was going to be kind to us. We got up and down Snowdon pretty easy, to be honest. And I'll never forget, actually, as we was coming down, it was pitch black, and all you could see was just rows of torches from where people were trying to get up and down. And I thought, before we went up, I thought, it will only be us on the hill. There'd be no one up there. And it was amazing how busy it was. And we went on to the second peak, was Cadair Idris. And in the space of about 90 minutes, the weather did a complete U-turn. And I genuinely believe that was the wettest day I've ever had on the hill. I had 3 waterproofs on, and they all gave up.
I've had plenty of those days. But I do think it evens itself out. And, it might be that, I have 2 or 3 weekends in a row where the weather's terrible. And in my head, I'm thinking that's okay, because I'll probably get 3 or 4 fantastic weekends coming next. It does tend to even itself out. But going back to what you said before, it's all about mindset. And in life, whatever it might be, it's so important. Whatever life throws at you, whatever the circumstance, situations, your attitude, your mindset, how you deal with that is so much more important than the actual thing or whatever is happening.
And actually, 3 of the lads actually that came on the second Welsh Three Peaks, still to this day, the challenges that they faced in their own body, in their career, we've used that Welsh Three Peaks as a metaphor. We got through that as a team. We went in as a team, we came out as a team, and we learned a shit ton of about ourselves. And still to this day, we're applying that as a metaphor to the adversities they're seeing just last week.
And I mean, it happened a long time ago, back within January 2009, because it was just before our first Kilimanjaro trip. And there was a guy who was coming on the Kilimanjaro trip, and a small group of us went up Snowdon in extremely wintry conditions. And this guy was he recently sort of resigned or left to become a non-exec chairman, but he was chairman and then previously chief executive of a big company. He was a multi-millionaire, a nice guy, but very, very successful, in his early 50s, had done so much in his life. And we managed to get up to the summit in this blizzards, whiteouts, snow, ice.
Amazing.
And as we were walking back down, he just said to me, "I think that's the best thing I've ever done in my life."
Wow.
And I was like, but you're you're incredibly successful, multi-millionaire, you've done loads. And that really stuck with me and has ever since. Just the fact that that's the power of something like that. And you should never underestimate Snowdon, particularly in sort of wintry conditions. But given how many thousands of people have climbed Snowdon or hiked up and down Snowdon, just for this guy to say that's probably the best thing he's ever done in his life was really powerful. And just on that kind of area, I mean, I know I briefly mentioned to you before this that I've just set up a new business called Mountain Parallels, which is all about using metaphors and analogies of the mountains and my experience of mountain life in leadership and management for businesses and health and well-being. And whatever you do on an outdoor adventure or in the mountains, you can always find parallels and how that relates to life, your ups
inside
and downs.
life, inside business, inside relationships.
Everything. And the leadership of management, you talk about teams and working together and supporting each other and looking at strengths and weaknesses and what, rather than just focusing purely on yourself, what other factors. And in my main job leading people, I often, whether it's groups of 10, 20, 40 or 50 people, often complete strangers, don't know anything about them. And for many of them, they've never done anything like this before. It's trying to understand, empathize, think of all these scenarios that could happen, be prepared, and so much more to it. And I think, particularly in the outdoors, you have to be so aware of all sorts of possibilities and things that could happen and be prepared. So
I think in a business environment, the team forms over time. From my experience of being in the outdoors, it speeds up that process and you find out a lot more about the team a lot quicker.
Yeah, you can certainly, you find out a lot about yourself, but other
individual characters.
Exactly. And again, because I've had years and years of experience with thousands and thousands of people, I mean, my ability to, I'm not always right, but I've got a very good sort of instinct in sort of judging characters and just knowing when to sort of push them or whether to just give them a bit of space, or who might be able to ask for a bit of help, or who's really going to struggle. What can we do about it? Let's go to plan B, then plan C, D, E. And you come across all sorts of different characters, and some people do surprise you. And I say, I mean, I do get it wrong in terms of judgment, but with my experience, you get to know people, and then
that's a really good point to make. So many people that we've trained or have been part of their journey, their confidence to start off with is quite low, and I always say, that's okay. If I used the analogy the other day, in fact, if I was going to go to flight school, I wouldn't feel confident in flying the plane straight out the gates. I've got to have that time, that experience, to get to know how I train and how the other person responds, and therefore I will have that kind of natural instinct myself over time of many hundreds of hours or tens of hours with clients to know what to say, when to push them, when to pull back, and how to be flexible and adaptable to say, well, this is plan A, this is plan B, this is plan C and plan D. So many people want to feel that confident straight out the gates, and it's a time game, isn't it?
I think that's really important for everything. Going on to the sort of health and well-being side that that you talked about, the talks, workshops, courses, books, etc., that I've done on these different topics. What's really frustrating is people want a quick fix. They want a magic wand.
Results.
Exactly, and that's the same, I guess, in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
There are no shortcuts. It takes time. It takes effort. And unless you understand that you've got to put the effort in, you've got to put the time in, you're not going to get the results. But if you do put the time in and you do get the knowledge, the understanding and the effort, then you will get the benefits, you will get the results, you will, whether it's overcoming depression, whether it's losing weight, whether it's becoming skilled in the mountains, with the knowledge, the effort, the understanding and the time, it's going to happen. I mean, it's a relatively simple equation. And the frustration is when people just want that magic wand. And I guess, when you're training people, it's trying to get that across. A lot of people recognize that and get that, but a lot of people don't. And it's trying to, because the other thing is they might then blame you. It's like, say to you and say, right, I want to get fit, lose a stone, and they don't. Well, the reality is it's almost certainly down to them. And I think there's, in general, in life, in society, there's too much trying to blame other people or other things without taking responsibility. And although it's difficult to be accountable for yourself and take responsibility, it is the only way, because yes, go and seek help, get advice, get coaches, get all the sort of help and input you can get, but ultimately you have to do it. Like climbing a mountain. Yeah, I can tell you, what equipment.
Without you actually physically doing the work, nothing's going to happen.
Carry you up there. Yeah, you've got to, put one foot in front of the other yourself. So again, I think whether you're talking mountains, whether you're talking, in the gym, whether it's life in general, you have to do it yourself. And it's getting that balance between seeking help and advice and coaching, but knowing that ultimately you have to do it.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FitPro? This is the FitPro Sessions Podcast with Parallel Coaching.
I think because there is no quick fix and people want, overnight results. We live in this, this world of like immediate gratification. If I post something up on Facebook, I immediately get a like. I can go back 5 or 6 years. I had to wait, half an hour for a pizza to be delivered. Now I can phone up Deliveroo and have that pizza within 5 minutes if I want it. And we live in this world of immediate gratification. And certainly from a fitness perspective, if I go to the gym today and I burn 500 calories and I'm quite tight on my calories and I sit in a calorie deficit, that doesn't necessarily show up as a weight loss today or tomorrow. It's only by doing the work today, and I keep repeating that process, that shows up in weight loss in several days or even several weeks' time. But because it takes time, people soon, I don't know, do they lose interest? What do you think that is of why people stop eventually, quite soon on? A classic, I suppose, from a New Year's resolution, those that join the gym, but by the 1st of February, they're nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because if I'm being completely honest, it's going to come across probably really harsh, in that people, they can talk a good game. They can say they want this, they want that, but if you really wanted it, then you would do what's required. And
did you do what you said you would do?
Yeah, and I think especially in the UK, we over decades we kind of we can get away with stuff, as in we don't have to do what people in perhaps other countries, poorer countries, or we had to in the past. Who walks, if you had a shop a mile away, pretty much everybody would get in a car and go down to the shop rather than walk to it, because it's easier. Why I just get in the car or get the lift, get the escalator rather than go up the stairs. Everything is much easier. You've got choices, and it's much easier to take the easy choice, as in, do I lie on the sofa and watch a film or watch a TV program and just chill out, or do I go for a run? Well, the easy option is to just lie on the sofa and watch a film. That's easy. It's easy, yeah. And in some cases, it might be the best thing to do. However, if it's about being fitter, healthier, building your confidence, losing weight, whatever, then going for a run or doing some exercise is going to be more beneficial. But with everything we do, it's a generalization, but we tend to go for the easier options. We take the least path of resistance. Yeah, and because we can. Yes. And it's a bit like our health overall. It's kind of, until you get a problem, you kind of, I'll probably get away with it, or not really thinking about it, until sometimes it's too late. And I just think that we've become very lazy. We go for the easy option, and we have all these options nowadays. Whereas if people really understood the benefits of what, if they did something, i.e. went for a walk, went for a run, went to the gym, ate, went to a shop and bought some vegetables and fresh food and chopped it up and then cooked it, as opposed to ordering the takeaway. the benefits you get from that are so much greater than, not doing that, and it'd be worth it. However, I mean, obviously there's a lot of talk, and it's getting worse and worse in terms of obesity and people overweight, and so much of that comes down to, people, if they have the choice, they can go and get a takeaway or get a ready meal, or go to the supermarket, buy some fresh vegetables, chop them up, put them in the oven, wait half an hour, then eat it, and then they've got to do the washing up and all this stuff. It's just, it's too much hassle. So I'll just go and get a takeaway or fast food or something.
Or the easier option. I think if we asked 100 people in Tesco's right now, how do you lose weight, or how do you get fitter, or how do you get healthier, or if they're stressed, how do you get a bit more balance back in life? They'd all know exactly what to do, right?
Yeah.
They just don't do what they know.
And I think, most people understand, about what's healthy and what's not healthy, but they have a choice. And most of the time they take the easier left, and then they'll say, I'm too tired, I haven't got time, all these things. But, and I know that if you are healthier, you feel less tired, you have more energy, you'll sleep better, you'll make time. And it's a difficult one. I mean, I think, ultimately it comes down to individuals and taking responsibility. And the world we live in, you have to respect people's choices. But it's frustrating when and I know, if people did X, Y, and Z, they would feel happier, healthier.
If it came all together.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think education is absolutely vital, but I think it's more vital in the sense of what the upsides and downsides are, what the benefits are, as opposed to, well, you should eat vegetables and fruit.
Just hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, completely.
Everyone knows that.
We can all, the education side of, you've got to eat 5 fruit and veg, or 1 oily fish a week, or however many litres of water a day. That's not the education. It's the education is, what are the benefits, and start to value those and seeing those as important.
Absolutely. And how it affects the brain and the neurotransmitters and how you feel and confidence and all this side of it. So, I mean, I don't know where I can only see things getting worse, to be honest, which is a real shame. But I'm not sure. If we
segue back a little bit then, and kind of consider, go back to like 2007, 2008, 2009, and we're talking about choices and not taking the easiest option. Jumping out of being, a chartered accountant in the business world, senior, position, also, a chartered Institute of Marketing, you've clearly got a road mapped out for where your career's heading. I'm going to assume it wasn't an easy choice to kind of jump ship and make those decisions. Far from easy, I can imagine. What was life like then in terms of making those decisions for a career change?
Okay, so I have to go back a few more years. So I started off my career after I graduated back in 1996. For those people out there, I'm 45 years old. I know, I don't look it. But back then it was all about money, career ladder, success is trying to earn as much as you can and grow. And I went down that route and ended up did an MBA and then set up a company. And to cut a very long story short, I lost a lot of money on a company, on a business, but it's less about the money. It's more what happened to me in terms of this. I put so much into it, so much effort, hard work, sacrificed so much, and money. And the reason it failed, or I pulled out, was mainly down to other people and other businesses. And I just felt that huge injustice. I kind of always effectively brought up and have the belief of you get out what you put in. You put in the reward. And that's what I love about fitness, is it's a very honest
The outdoors, being in the mountains, being fit.
Yeah.
We were talking before the podcast started about you've moved again, and your first consideration was where was the nearest gym, and that aligns directly to your beliefs and values of what you put in is what you get out.
And that's especially if it's a very level playing field, in that you do pretty much get the rewards of what you put in. Whereas with the business, I felt, and it was true, that it wasn't fair, as in a lot of businesses and other people were unreliable, didn't do what they said they were going to do, let us down, and that affected our business to the point where we were losing a lot of money, but that affected my mental health, even though at the time didn't know anything about stress and depression and stuff. But it got to the point where someone who'd been pretty successful and very driven, very determined, ambitious, I was left empty. I kind of felt like I'd failed, the business had failed. I had no more drive in me at all. I was completely numb, empty, depressed, suicidal thoughts. It was a horrible, horrible time. And ironically, with currently the Rugby World Cup going on, this is back in 2003. And one of the things that kind of kept me going for a few weeks was the success England had in that Rugby World Cup. And back then it was, as I say, I'd been successful, I was ambitious, very driven, and now I was completely empty, had nothing left, and I was depressed without understanding that. And I had a load of debt related to the business that I felt responsible for, which I had to sort of pay back. And to me, I had to go back to finance and accounting and that way to earn the money in order to pay it back. So I then had a target and a focus of, as quickly as I could, to pay off that debt. It was around about £100,000. And my whole life was around paying that money off, which meant working my backside off to get higher up the corporate ladder, to earn the more money. And effectively for 3.5 years, I led a double life. At work, I was very professional, working really hard, very successful, and was seen as a young high flyer, earning lots of money, doing really well, what a great life. The reality was my other life was I was depressed, I was reclusive, I was just miserable. And I didn't understand anything about mental health, depression, stress. I just knew that I hated life, but I had to work hard to pay the money back. And then eventually, the summer of 2007, I paid off all the debt and I was back to zero, which was a huge anticlimax.
Amazing. Yeah.
I then wrote a book about it, and that's when I mentioned the marathons. I'd ran a couple of marathons during that time, and it's only looking back I realised how beneficial that was. And then I had started having the idea of setting up this idea of climbing a mountain and the physical challenges to help through a difficult time. But then I was like, well, I'm never going to get into debt again. I need some money. I need some security. So I carried on the finance career and became a finance director of a big company. And for a lot of people, fantastic. A big 6-figure salary. I was flying first class around the world to these boring presentations and budget meetings and stuff. But I'd done all right for myself. However, I wasn't happy. And every time particularly when I was coming back from the airports, I'd say to myself, this is not what I want to do. I'm only doing this for the money. I've learned that money's not that, isn't the be all or end all. You've got to
somewhat that double life still.
Yeah, and I was battling with myself, like, how long can I carry on doing this? Just doing it for the money, as opposed to doing something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And then it was April 2008. I finally said, enough's enough. Let's go for it. Huge decision to turn my back on that career and financially. But like I said before, it's about doing what I wanted to do for a healthier lifestyle for myself. But also, I felt I didn't want anyone else to go through what I went through. So there was so much I learned from the experience that I could hopefully help other people.
Completely.
In terms of the kind of health and well-being and the stress, depression, all those issues, it was only several months later that it was actually from a book I read, and then I read another book, and suddenly everything started to make sense. And I spent about 6 months just reading and researching and going, wow, this is I've had this stress-related depression, and
this is me.
And this is me, and oh my God, and I was quite shocked and almost embarrassed that, I'm an intelligent guy, and I'd experienced this. I had no clue about it, and I thought, wow, if I haven't got a clue, then hardly anyone's going to understand this. That's why I think it's really important to set up the knowledge, the educational, trying to give people the understanding. So if they understand the factors, the triggers, what they can do, what works best, why they feel, behave, think the way they do, then they're going to be in a position to have more control and then be able to do the things, and it makes sense as to what's happening, but also what they can then do. But underlying all of that, along with lots of other things, is how important physical exercise and activities are physically, but probably more importantly, mentally.
And it's amazing actually how many learners that we've directly trained through Parallel, and they have a very, very similar backstory to what you've just said of in the moment in their career, their main thing that's driving them is the paycheck at the end of the month, and it's that fear of perhaps giving that up, or that jumping ship from security and certainty to something very insecure and uncertain. And that living a double life, by day 9 till 5 they're deeply unhappy, and inside they feel lethargic, tired, all the various emotions that come with that kind of umbrella of mental health, stress, anxiety, depression. And then of an evening they hit their own sessions in the gym, and almost their whole world lights up, and there's just small pockets of the day where they feel like themselves again. And I think that's one of the biggest kind of catalysts behind so many people that end up going through a career change, and that understanding that they've had a problem, an issue, they've perhaps not realized it in the moment, gone on to learn more about themselves, and figured, if I didn't know about this, there must be so many more people out there that also don't know, and I can go and help them.
Yeah. And I get that many people don't feel like they have a choice when it comes to work, or they feel stuck in a job, and what's the alternative, what else they can do. But most people have more choices than they think. And when it comes to your life, I know some people might not agree, but you only live once, and life is pretty short. You never know what's around the corner. And although nobody has a perfect life, no one's going to be happy all the time. That's ridiculous. But you're in a position to just reflect and think, well, what would I like to do? How could I get there? How could I change things or modify things so that I have a healthier, happier life where I'm doing more of what I want to do? And as I say, there isn't any such thing as a perfect life, and there's always pros and cons, and setting up your own business or changing jobs or doing something completely different is risky, and it may not work out. But there's also that thing around, don't live life with the regrets. If you spend years and years and years going, well, if only I'd done this, or what if I tried that, then as long as you've really thought about it, you've got as much advice or knowledge as you can, then go for it. Don't have rose-tinted glasses. Don't be naive. Don't just think, oh yeah, everything's going to be wonderful if I do this, because you probably won't.
My coach says to me quite often, and reinforces, I'd have rather have tried and failed than not attempted at all, because that in itself is somewhat failing. So if you really want to do it, try, go ahead and go for it. So you've gone through your 2000 the early 2000s, mid 2000s. You're at 2008. You've jumped into the mountains, the outdoors. You've got a few marathons under your belt. You've started to write some books and kind of jump into a completely different line of work. What sort of things did you have to do to get qualified? I take it you did your mountain leaders, or what type of qualifications did you?
So mountain leader qualification. In some ways it's fairly straightforward. In other ways, you need a lot of experience and a lot of mountain days, and it's very, very heavy on the navigation. what I would say is you don't have to be qualified. However, legally you can take people and do whatever. But I mean, like with most things, it makes a huge difference. And for your credibility and insurance, all these things. So the mountain leader qualification through Mountain Training Association. I mean, if people are interested in that, then it depends on their experience, but you need at least 2 years, but as a minimum experience. But that includes again a minimum of 40 different quality mountain days, which I won't go into detail now. And then you've got your training, then your assessments. So yeah, outdoor mountain leader qualification. But some people do it for a full-time job. Some people do it as a part-time, freelancing, extra to their main jobs. And other people just do it for themselves or for their own confidence, their own enjoyment.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I have a pool of qualified mountain leaders and trainee mountain leaders that I use on all the different trips I have. So if you qualify, then you get paid. If you're a trainee, then basically what happens is you come as an extra help for myself, but you gain experience with groups.
You get one of your mountain days in your logbook to work towards
and if it's a weekend trip, you get free hotel, you get advice from myself, and it's a win-win. So yeah, if anyone is interested in the outdoors, then certainly have a look at the mountain training and that qualification.
So as you were growing into the mountain coach, certainly in the last 4 years, you say.
Yeah.
What I find incredibly fascinating, and I want to tip my hat to you on this, is how you showed up on social media. You showed up quick, you showed up fast, and I had a look this morning. You've got over 30,000 followers on Facebook and whatnot, and Instagram. Now, I want to recognize that a follower isn't necessarily somebody who's going to turn up on a mountain day, and the number of likes don't equal a number of pounds that you earn by any means. They don't go hand in hand. But you have created this the social media presence, and how did you go about that? What did you do? You showed up super quick.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, we touched on it near the start of, when people say, "Oh, what do you do? Do you just do this at weekends?" It's social media, unfortunately, is every day, several times a day. So over the last few years, I've at least once a day, sometimes I post some kind of quote with a nice picture, something that might get people thinking, might resonate with them. Then I obviously post pictures of trips we've done, plus events that we've done. So constant sort of monitoring Facebook and other social media, but posting stuff that you think will resonate or be interesting, not bombarding people, trying to get a balance there. Also, a lot of referrals and a lot of regular repeat customers, and I try my best. It's all not always, it's sometimes quite difficult, but to try to respond to emails and messages and posts as quickly as I can. So
it's easier to keep a client than get a new one.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So it's trying to be, I guess, professional, but trying to, respond appropriately and as quickly as possible to all of those. I
think the main thing I get from that is the consistency. You've said, I've posted once to twice a day, every day for several years. and it comes back to what we were saying earlier about that kind of immediate gratification. Perhaps in the early days, you didn't see major traction or, page likes going up or interaction on posts, but it was only
what I found was, and you have to but also you find certain things work better.
Yes.
So for example, if I put up a particular quote or photo and it starts getting hundreds of likes, then I might boost it, because I know that's, for whatever reason, that's a popular one. So I might spend some money and boost that, which then obviously goes out to many more thousands of people, and you get subsequent followers and likes from that. So it's just it's being a bit savvy and a bit sort of, I guess, smarter around what you post, when you post it, but also if you are using the advertising and boosting, what to advertise and to boost. But yeah, I think it comes back with anything is trying to be professional, trying to be consistent, trying to be fair, trying to give content that people appreciate and want to see. And yeah, it's a full-time job. And when it comes to the public, most people are emailing me or sending me messages in the evenings. So, I have to be on my phone, or sometimes
being
on my
reactive
computer.
to when they're reactive, as opposed to when it's almost suits you.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Customer service at the end of the day, and the amount of times I get people replying back, "Oh, thanks for the quick response." And given that it's just me responding to it, it's not a big company, it's not a whole load of people. I think, although it's sometimes not easy, I think people do appreciate that.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So many of our learners, they go, I didn't expect a fast response. It might only be like 10 minutes difference from when they sent an email in, and it is that quick, speedy response that people really value. As you say, I'm looking at you now on screen. There's not a room behind you with 10 other people in there typing away with a mountain coach.
No.
So you've built up this following. You've got tens of thousands of people engaged and watching you. Do you remember the first ever trip you did with, you're fully qualified now as the mountain coach? What was that first trip like? How many people did you have?
Probably, I think as officially as the mountain coach would have been the winter 2015. So most of the trips, to be honest, around about 20 people in terms of weekend trips. And winter is, I love winter, but it's always, you just never know what the conditions are going to be like. And then for, what can you do? What routes do people, are they going to have the right clothing? And we've had the best days. I always find it in winter, particularly if there is some wintry conditions. I mean, you have to be sensible. You have to be smart around what you do for safety reasons. But snow can be fantastic in terms of if you know the mountains, you know the routes, you know what's safe, what's not. Then for most people, they don't tend to go hiking up a mountain with snow or whiteouts or whatever. So I've had quite a few sort of winter hikes where it's just, for most people, they've not experienced anything like it. They probably think they're in the Antarctic or on top of Everest because they can't see anything. They're just following the person in front of them, in snow going up. And then at some point we say, right, we're at the summit, and they're like, I can't believe it. And then some of those days are the best. So I think, again, if I'm completely honest, over the years, almost sadly, but inevitably, we've had to be more and more risk averse, as in, always be a bit more cautious. And I get that and I understand that, because all it takes is one person say, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or if something did happen to go wrong, you always have to cover yourself and not, you can never ever put yourself in a situation where somebody could say you've been negligent or there's an issue. So you have to urge on the, more cautiously. However, and I say over the years, probably had to be more and more cautious, because my instinct is, come on, we can do this, let's go for it. And 99 times out of 100, be absolutely fine and great. But I think, those winter trips, again, a lot of people are put off. They think it's cold, dark, miserable, don't want to do it. But honestly, you can have the most fantastic experiences. And what I would say is, no matter what we do, it is safe. You're going to be guided. You're going to have other qualified guides there and helpers and experienced people. So we have
what I love about that is about being outdoors, and you're saying you've got other people there to help you. You want, there is an element of risk, and it's how much risk am I able to take and willing to take before it is unsafe or before something might happen.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FitPro? This is the FitPro Sessions Podcast with Parallel Coaching.
So we got a number, hundreds of learners that have done various outdoor boot camps, still do. They do the circuits. Once you qualified in your PT course, There's an element of training in different environments. So that could be in a local park, out on the beach, on the hill, wherever, in a car park, etc. What advice would you give somebody from your experience of how to control a group for the first time?
I think what I find is if people book a trip, you would hope and almost expect them to understand what they've booked and what they've done. Now that's not always the case. Then secondly, when you send out the information and you as clear as possible as what it entails, what you need, etc., etc. Not everyone reads the emails. Then you do a briefing and you repeat everything again and go into more detail. Not everybody listens, and you have to constantly be aware that people won't read the emails, won't know what they're doing, won't listen to what you're saying. So you have to sort of reinforce it. But you have to, I mean, this comes back to general public and people, and they're all different. And through knowledge and experience, you get a sense of who may cause some issues potentially, or who's going to be potentially going to help you. So yeah, I just think you have to communicate as best you can. But also accept that some people just won't take that on board.
And keep communicating until they get it.
And we'll keep reinforcing it. And sometimes you may have to be a bit firmer and a bit tougher on them. And ultimately, there's been occasions, certainly a few times over the years, where I've had to just say to people, sorry, but you can't do this. You haven't got the right footwear on, or you're just not able to do it. You've signed up for something that you can't do.
So even though they've paid, it's having that confidence to turn around and say, I'm sorry, you've turned up in flip-flops and you want to go up a mountain.
Yeah. And I'll give you a good example. I mean, it's and nothing surprises me at all. But a good example is National Three Peaks. So it's a very, very popular challenge. But when we do them, they typically get sold out at least 6 months, usually 9 months before the actual challenge itself. So people have at least 6 months before. They have all the information. They paid quite a lot of money to do it. If they turn up on the day, we give them the advice, give them the itinerary, we explain everything, and they pay 300 quid or whatever it is. And if they turn up on the day and they'd struggle to walk a couple of miles to the shops and back, you think, but you can't allow them to affect or penalise other people who have put the effort in, or who could do it. So occasionally over the years, we've had to say to people, sorry, you can't do this. And it's really awkward, and it's a nightmare situation, but you can't allow one person to affect everybody else. So
everyone else. What I really like about that kind of reinforcing is something we've just done the first weekend of a new PT course in our Milton Keynes Academy, and a couple of the learners turned around at one point and said, it feels really, really awkward and really unnatural to keep saying the same thing and reinforcing particular coaching points. And I suppose in a role play scenario where they're using each other in the gym to practice, they know the key teaching points. And we're saying, reinforce, communicate the same message until the client fully understands. And I think the point I get from yourself is keep reinforcing the communication until they prove to you that they actually get it. And that might be through several emails, through a couple of briefs, through constant communication, even though you might be sitting there thinking, God, how many times do I have to tell them?
Yeah. And, most, I'm sure you'll find the same. The vast majority of people are great. They listen, they understand, they respect you, they have the right mindset. Unfortunately, like with anything, there's always going to be some people that don't listen, don't get it, cause some issues. And you have to deal with that. And sometimes it's straightforward to deal with. Other times it's really hard and it can affect the situation. But you've got to try and minimise the effect, the negative effect that has. So yeah, I mean, you cannot, with any job, with any profession, with any situation, you cannot expect everything to be perfect, everyone to be wonderful, everything just as you want it to be. So it's going back to what I said before, it's how you deal with those situations, and having confidence in yourself and I guess knowing that whatever you do and you say, you can look yourself in the mirror and go, that was the right
decision.
Yeah, and I can live with that. And no one's. It's going to be very difficult for someone to prove that you were wrong in that situation based on your knowledge and experience.
So based on your knowledge and experience, Ben, and several years with a mountain coach, and since 2008, you've done this for 11 years, and even taking into consideration your accounting background and management background, is there a common myth around coaching that you can debunk, for a better word?
I think, like with anything, you're going to get good coaches, bad coaches. You're going to get some coaches who are good for some people, some that don't work for others. And again, that's just life. That's just how it is. I mean, one example that springs to mind is a book I read ages ago, but again, relevant slightly because of the Rugby World Cup. One of the most famous All Blacks of all time, John Kerwin, he was like one of the best players in the world in the late 80s and early 90s. Absolute legend, New Zealand All Black rugby player. And he wrote a book called All Blacks Don't Cry. And essentially it was all about, throughout his playing career, he was suicidal. He wanted to kill himself. He was incredibly depressed. And the reason for that was he thought he would get found out as not being good enough, even though he was World Player of the Year, he won the World Cup, he was an absolute legend. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that he said that he finally opened up about his problems and went to a psychiatrist. And the first one he saw was terrible, and it made him worse, and it made him suicidal again. And fortunately, he was talked into seeing somebody else, and that second psychiatrist basically saved his life and changed his life and helped him overcome his issues and deal with it. And he's gone on to set up a huge his own foundation or charity and help millions of people and stuff. And the point there is, they were probably both probably helped hundreds of people, but for him, that one person didn't work for him, but somebody else did. And with coaching, you're going to get good, bad, in the middle, some that work for others. So if you are a coach, then you never want to be in a situation where someone says, oh, you're no good. But if you do get any criticism, then it may be because you've done something wrong, but it might just be for that person it didn't work out.
Yes.
And vice versa. It might be, if you have a coach and they're not for you, that might be because there's something wrong with them or they're not doing a very good job. But it might just be
that you and the coach of a coach and you, for some reason, the planets don't align, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can't, you're never going to please everyone. You're never going to be everyone's cup of tea. For whatever reason, and sometimes you'll never know the reason. You should always reflect on yourself. You always try and improve yourself and be the best you can be, and gain more knowledge, gain more experience, try and get feedback, constructive feedback. But you're never going to be able to please everyone, and not everyone's going to like you. And so
I think just to add on to that bit as well is, just because you may get, let's say you have a coach and you get some negative feedback or criticism back, that doesn't mean you have to change your approach either.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable and you're confident that what you're doing is correct and is aligned for you to kind of show up as the best version of you, just know that you're not going to get on with everybody, and that's okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean just because you've had criticism that you have to change the way you operate. Now, if you constantly get the same bit of criticism time and time again, then maybe there's a little bit of a sign there. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a U-turn just because you get one bad comment or one negative bit of feedback.
Absolutely. And I mean, you should definitely reflect on yourself. You should take on board any criticism, listen to advice, listen to feedback, speak to people you trust, etc., and try to constantly improve yourself and learn. But who's to say they're right and you're wrong, or vice versa?
Completely.
So have confidence in yourself. If you're doing it and you believe in it and you're, think it's right. And it comes back to what I said a few minutes ago. If you can look in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm happy with what I've done, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, that's the main thing, because ultimately it's down to you and how you feel. And I can't think of someone off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's someone out there. I don't know. Let's say David Beckham. I mean, there's people out there who don't like David Beckham. It's not. You can't be
liked by everybody.
Exactly.
Completely.
I'm sure there's people out there who don't like me for whatever reason, and it's not. You prefer that not to be the case, but I'm sure it happens. And very, very occasionally. I mean, what I say, I am fortunate in that I'll say 95% plus of the people we have on our trips are fantastic, great feedback, great repeat customers. I'm clearly doing something right. I try my best, and for any fitness professional out there, that's all you can do.
That's all you can do, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, is just show up as the best version of you every day. And as you say, as long as you can look in the mirror at the end of every day and go, I did what I set out to do. I did what I said I was going to do, and I did it to the best of my ability. I'm cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely.
What I want to do now, because I'm conscious of your time and I appreciate that, is move on. I've got a couple of learner questions. So I sent out an email to our email list in the Parallel Coaching community, and I got quite a few emails back, and I kind of put them all into see any trends. And I got an email for a question from Sandra, one from Steve, and one from Helen. So I thought I'd fire these across to you. Sandra asks, I have a walking group weekly, and I want to add variety. How would you go about doing this? So I don't know the ins and outs to Sandra. I know she's based just on the outskirts of a major city. I don't, it's definitely not like walking group leader or, mountain days. But how could she add a bit more variety to what she's doing based on your experience of leading groups and walking groups?
Okay. I mean, what I've done quite a lot in the past is used basically walking guides, particularly the Pathfinder guides, which they cover lots of different areas of the UK, and within that particular area they'll give various walks, and they rate them as sort of fairly easy, bit more moderate, and then more challenging, and they give like a map and description and stuff, so they're fairly easy to follow. So to get some variety and to sort of give you a description of that particular route. And one thing you have to be very wary of, depending on how many numbers, is parking. Is there somewhere to park? Is it safe? How much does it cost? All that those sorts of issues. But use those Pathfinder guides or go on the internet and find walking routes. There's so many people publishing different routes out now, and try some just bit of variety. I mean, there's so many. No matter where you live, there's within a short radius, there's loads of good walking routes, different, whether it's rivers, lakes, canals, forests, whatever. So
what I really like about that was just the extra consideration of, if you're going to add variety and maybe change location, it's understanding, is there access to parking? Do you have to pay for parking? Are there going to be public toilets there? Are they going to be open? Is it a dog friendly route? And loads of other considerations. As you say, something we talked about earlier in the podcast about, being comfortable, and we take the easy option. If we've used the same venue or the same route time and time again, that becomes easy, it becomes comfortable. And it's not until you change that suddenly you have to consider lots of new things again.
And for Sandra, if she's leading the walks, then I would always recommend you go and recce it first. So I mean, very occasionally, probably 2-3 times ever, that I've led a route which I've never recce'd before, never been there. So even if it's new stuff, I always make sure I've recce'd it and done it first, because you never know what might be there or not be there, or how it may be different from a map or description. So if you've got the opportunity, go and recce it first, and as you say, check those other things out, which are important, do make a difference.
Yeah, I'd add on to that. That's a really good point. I remember back in my early kind of PT days, it's probably, it was just on the outskirts of Leighton Buzzard, and I used one of the local parks. It's probably about 2008, 2009, and I did a boot camp, and then I left it for about 6 months, and I came back and I thought, well, I've done it before. It'll be absolutely fine. But when I returned back, the path that we went in and out of this park was completely non-existent and was kind of 6 foot high in sting nettles. So just because you've done the recce once, from my experience, it's to go back and do the recce again if there's been a time frame between them.
Yeah, definitely.
Next question from Steve. You must deal with a lot of people overcoming fears, and you focus things on like heights. How do you go about focusing on people's fears? I'd imagine, Steve is I know Steve is a qualified PT. He's been FitPro for quite a few years. And, a number of his clients I know are turning up with various fears and barriers around exercise. But, how do you overcome people's fears? I suppose the main one would be heights, vertigo, you name it, on the hill.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things there. Firstly, I think it's important, particularly if someone kind of expresses they've got a fear or it becomes obvious, is you want them to feel confident in you or the other guides. So it's getting across, and you can do this in lots of different ways, but that you know what you're doing. You're qualified, you experience, you know what you're doing, they're in safe hands. So whether that's myself or one of the other guides, installing confidence and therefore trust is really important. And then from them, to look at them themselves is, I guess it's trying to say, look, you're going to be okay. We're not going to put you in any danger. We're looking after you. You're going to be fine. Actually, having that bit of fear increases focus, which is a good thing. And for example, we talked about crib got before. I would much rather people being scared than sort of being complacent and trying to take selfies and stuff, because that's when that complacency and not focusing, that's when you're going to
accidents do happen. I really like that point of that fear creates an element of focus.
Oh, definitely.
And attention to detail and being vigilant and all of the other kind of attributes or personal characteristics that we all want more of.
Yeah, and we talked briefly before about stress as a very negative thing in relation to depression, and stress is generally a bad thing. However, in certain situations and to an extent, stress is a good thing because it does make you focus. It releases the cortisol and all these things that make you feel more alive. So having that fear, it can be a good thing. It's just managing it. And when you get people who are, I think it's the trust and confidence to make them feel they're in safe hands. And for them, occasionally it might be, look, I'll just stay with you. Come next to me. I'll even, hold my hand if you need to. But just sort of get across them that they're going to be okay. The worst thing that can happen is not what actually they think is the worst thing, because they think the worst thing is they're going to fall off and die.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Just keep focused, you'll be fine. And most of the time, 9 times out of 10, I'll be honest, sometimes you get someone who said, I'm never doing that again, and I hated every second of it. But most of the people who have fears, 9 times out of 10, afterwards they're like, wow, that was great. I might not do it again, but I'm really glad I did do it.
Quite often it's a perceived fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a perceived risk.
Irrational.
The risk doesn't actually exist in reality. The risk that they perceive is in the top 3 inches of their head of all of the what ifs that they've run through, all of the possibilities. And I suppose that's the same for, walking up the side of Crib Gok, the fear of falling off, and they've replayed the what ifs. What if this happens, or I can't do that? And suddenly they've now created this irrational phobia, this irrational fear. And it's the same, I suppose, for somebody turning up to their first training session. They've gone through all of the what ifs and all of the irrational thoughts and feelings, but reality is they don't exist other than in that person's head. So what I really like what you said is reframing that actually this stress or this fear that you see as a bad thing is actually a really good thing in the same light.
Yeah, definitely. And I love heights and bit of that adrenaline and the drops and all this, but it's trying to then empathize with someone who is really, really scared and trying to, rather than saying, oh, come on, stop being a wuss and get on with it. You can't have that mentality. It's trying to empathize, which is another huge important factor in coaching and that element, and almost sort of just play it by ear. If they're starting to build a bit of confidence, let them grow. Just keep just give them a bit more space, let them do it. If they are really struggling, then you might need to spend a bit more time with them and step in. But the thing with someone says they're scared of heights, then they can either carry on their whole life scared of heights, not doing anything, or they can tackle it, but do it in a safer environment as possible. So, go with a guide.
Afraid of a gym, or afraid that people are looking at you, or afraid that you're going to be the only overweight person in the gym, or you can, cease for a moment and say, right, I'm going to do it in a really safe and positive way. And I suppose that's the message for Steve, isn't it? Cool.
Definitely.
So final question, Ben. I got one final learner question and then 2 questions to finish up. And Helen said or asked, you plan many trips well in advance. How do you know these are going to go ahead and work? She's set up, I spoke to her about this. She's set up a couple of things historically in fitness, and her biggest fear is it's not working or not going to work. And I suppose for a self-fulfilling prophecy, they didn't work. So she just wants to, what tips have you got? How do you know we're going to work, Charlie?
I've probably got some bad news in that it's very difficult to know. I mean, I've done, there are some trips I'm going to sell out, and I can book hotels at a cheaper rate in advance, maybe up to a year ahead. Other times I can do a trip, it's sold out, it's been brilliant, and I go, right, I'm going to book a load of hotel rooms, I'm going to put a load of money up front for this, and then it doesn't get the numbers, and I've maybe not lost money, but I've certainly have not had anywhere near as much as I was expecting, or occasionally you do lose money. So it's a combination of experience, knowing what works and what doesn't to an extent. There is an element of risk, and it's kind of how much risk do you want to take? For example, I'll give you an example. So on quite a lot of my trips, I'll use the Premier Inn for an overnight stay, and that's mainly because you know what you're going to get, and you can get, if you've got large groups, they'll cater for them. With the Premier Inn, if people aren't aware, you can get some very cheap rates, but the prices go up and up and up and up and up. And you've got 2 levels. You pay a rate where you can cancel up to like the day of the stay, or you cannot get a refund at all. Now, so the question is, do you go with the cheaper rates, but you've no idea if you're going to fill them or not, or do you go with the higher rate, but you can cancel if you don't fill them? But also, how many rooms do you book in advance? Because the rate might start off at £30, £35 and will quickly go to £70, £80, £90. And it's a very, I mean, I've joked, I've told a few people about this, and I've joked, this is kind of my sort of bit like a gambling addict in a sense.
Yeah, completely.
You are going, right, how many rooms do I book in advance, and am I going to take a risk? And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. I've been caught in situations where I haven't booked enough rooms, and I'm ended up having to spend 80, 90, £100 on a room, and I'm basically losing money because of people have booked. And there's other times when...
Because it was too successful.
And other times when I've got 4, 5, 6 rooms spare, and I'm like, so that's just one example. But I think you have to, a bit like the stock market, past performance is an indicator of future performance, that kind of thing. But to an extent it is. So you can get some comfort from what has worked in the past and replicate that, because it's likely to be similar, not always the case. How much are you prepared to risk, and what's the risk reward? In my situation, it might be the difference between £200, maybe £300 difference. Now, that can make that, in terms of margins, that's quite a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world. So again, it's how much you're prepared to risk. I
always find that from a parallel perspective, we rent out our academy for weekends, 3-4 days at a time. And it's quite a costly sum, and then we've got the various resources and learner manuals behind it. So the overall overheads are quite high. And from my experience, I know that if I back that course and I say, right, we're going to have 11 days at the venue, there's going to be 14 manuals, I know what that cost is to me, that kind of puts my back against the wall to take a lot more action, because I don't want it to fail. I don't want to be in that position where it didn't work. So for me, I always say to learners, if you do put your kind of more skin in the game, you're more likely to take action. You're more likely to wake up every day and think about, what do I need to do on social media today? Do I need to do any paid for advertising today? Do I need to work harder on my emails today? Do I need to link up with referral partners? And it's only because there's more skin in the game, I'm more likely to take that ferocious action.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And, I was about to say that if something's not working as well, but you're taking the risk, then you are going to focus more on that, like you say. So you're going to put more effort into it. And things tend to balance themselves out. I mean, I may have a particular event or trip that goes really well, and another one which, isn't so great. But rather than getting really down about the one that isn't going so great, I'll be actually overall, ups and downs, things are good. But yeah, as you say, sometimes if you've got more risk, you're going to focus more and put more effort into that particular one. So, I mean, I don't know enough about her situation, but it's that take risks, but cautiously.
But calculate them completely.
Yeah.
Cool, Charlie. I've got two final questions, and I leave every podcast with every guest speaker with these two questions. So first one is, based on life today, all your experiences before getting into the mountains, as the mountain coach, X, Y, and Z, what 3 things, tips or advice would you give someone that wanted to start out in not just fitness, but coaching?
Be realistic.
Nice.
In that, obviously don't know the situation, but far too many people, it's the same with people who want to be mountain leaders or have an outdoor business. They tend to see only the upsides. That might be because they're doing something they don't want to do, and they just think the grass is greener, and they look through rose-tinted glasses and all those cliches.
But the reality is?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, the reality is it's going to be much harder work. You're going to get probably, certainly to begin with, a lot less people than you think joining up or paying you, more costs than you expect, more hassle, more admin, all this stuff. So be realistic, and that means talking to people who are in it and get honest views. So firstly, be realistic. Secondly, if you think that you're going to spend the next months, years, decades regretting not doing something, then how much is that worth? As in,
no, that's really powerful. I love that.
You're only going to find out unless you do it. And too many people will go through the whole of their lives and wish they'd at least tried it. Like you said before, it may not work out, but at least you won't be regretting it. So, firstly, be realistic. Secondly, don't be thinking what if. If it's what you want to do, go for it. And thirdly, don't underestimate how important good people having them around you are. In that there's very few people that you probably going to have in your life that you can really trust, you really value, you respect, who get you get them, etc. And if you've got anyone, even if it's one person, if you've got them, make sure you make the effort to invest in them, take the time, talk to them, chat to them, get their advice, get their input, get their help. Because, especially if you are setting up your own, it can be a lonely business. It can be stressful, difficult, without responsibility. So whether it's a partner, a friend, a mentor, a colleague, whatever, don't underestimate how important that is, particularly if you're going for your own business.
Superb. I love those 3 amazing tips. We'll definitely make them really clear and pad them out in the show notes as well. Final question then, Charlie. I want to acknowledge your time today as well. I also want to acknowledge your your approach to coaching as well, and kind of having that tenacity to, in 2008 to pursue something of your passion, and over the last number of years work with literally thousands of people and impact their world, whether it was for a short couple of hours on the hill, but the ripple effect that had further down the line in their mental health, whatever kind of challenges or adversities they're facing. And like you said earlier, that analogy or metaphor of the mountain, not only something you walk up or hike up, but also the mountain you're facing in life. So, the effort, your approach, wisdom and thirst for learning has just been amazing. So with all of that, what's your definition of an outstanding coach?
Someone
it always stumps everybody I ask about to, is this delayed pause of like, oh wow, that's a question.
I think you've got to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
You've got to have empathy, and you've got to have the knowledge as well. I mean, you've got to, if you're coaching someone, you're basically giving out your skills, knowledge, understanding to somebody else. So you've got to have that knowledge. So yeah, empathy, i.e. putting yourself in their position, having a passion, i.e. you want to be doing it, but having the knowledge. So always keep learning, reminding yourself.
Back up what it is you want to be doing completely.
Yeah, so I'd say passion, empathy, knowledge.
Superb. Charlie, I want to thank you for your time today.
No problem.
It's been awesome having you on, and I'm sure everyone listening will say exactly the same. And with that said, we will see you hopefully on another podcast soon.
Yeah, no, thanks, Neil. And for anyone out there, check out themountaincoach.com.
Completely. Let's finish that off, actually. Where can I forgot to ask, where can everybody go to find and learn more about you?
Okay, so the website, themountaincoach.com. There's also, I briefly mentioned, the mountainparallels.com, new business. There's a charity, climbyourmountain.org, which, there's a website for that as well. On Facebook, the main page is The Mountain Coach. Check out any of those. On Instagram as well. If you've got any questions, feel free to get in contact and maybe see some of your listeners out on a trip.
Completely. It'd be amazing too to see them out there. And what we do is we put all of the links below in the show notes, so you can easily go and find more about Charlie and what he's up to with his latest ventures going into next year.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks,
cool.
Neil.
See you soon, buddy.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cool. Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FitPro doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support, and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify, and kickstart as a FitPro? This is the FitPro Sessions Podcast with Parallel Coaching.